Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let me tell you what happened after the candles were lit, and before she even picked up the knife. There's a cake sitting in our fridge. Chocolate with raspberry filling, her favorite. I baked it myself. There's also a half-inflated silver balloon still stuck to the ceiling, drifting lower every day. Says, happy you. Not happy birthday. Just happy you. The rest deflated while she was still out, doing whatever she thought was more important than showing up for the man who's always shown up for her. I didn't scream. I didn't text. I didn't leave a note. I just left. But that's not even the shocking part. The shocking part is how long I knew, and still stayed. I knew from the mismatched perfume, the late-night showers, the notifications she cleared too fast. I knew when she bought new lingerie and said, "It's for me, not you." Like I was an inconvenience in my own marriage. But I played along. I planned that cake. I made reservations. I even put on the stupid blue blazer she said made me look less tired. You want to know the last thing she said to me before leaving that day? "Don't wait up. I might crash at Cora's." That's when I understood. I was no longer a husband. I was background noise. And I hated that I still loved her. So I did something I didn't know I had the nerve to do. I erased myself, turned off my phone, disabled my email, canceled our joint accounts. I left the front door unlocked and walked out at 2:14 a.m. with a backpack and a prepaid debit card. No drama, no fireworks, no final argument. I wanted to see what she'd do when the punching bag stopped swinging back. When the man she took for granted simply didn't exist anymore. The next morning, she found the untouched cake. The same cake she never got to cut. And now, she's unraveling. But this isn't just her story. It's mine. And I'm finally ready to tell it. I didn't expect her to notice immediately. Honestly, I thought she might go the entire weekend thinking I'd gone on a sulking trip or taken one of my mental health days she always rolled her eyes at. But no. It started the very next morning with the cat. Lola is a quiet tabby who only ever comes to me. She's shy, a little needy, and always curls up on the corner of my side of the bed. Every morning, without fail, she waits for me to feed her. That Saturday morning, I wasn't there. And Lola, in protest, apparently knocked over Melinda's favorite coffee mug, shattering it in the kitchen. I'm not proud to say this, but I smiled when I imagined the sound. It was the first crack in her carefully curated world, and I hadn't even made it 100 miles away yet. I had switched phones, cut off all my cards, and booked a room at a roadside motel under a fake name I used to use for video game accounts. There was no trail, no credit activity, no Instagram updates. For the first time in years, I wasn't being watched or ignored. I simply didn't exist, and that terrified her. By Sunday, I got word, through my cousin's girlfriend, who worked part-time at the coffee shop Melinda used to frequent, that she was asking around. "Have you seen Conrad? Did he say anything? Did he look upset?" That last one made me laugh out loud. Did I look upset? I'd been walking around like a ghost for months. I was practically see-through. If it took my disappearance for her to finally notice I was breaking, maybe I should have left a long time ago. But it didn't stop there. On Monday, she filed a missing person report. She called my mother, whom she hadn't spoken to in almost a year. She even messaged an old friend of mine she used to mock for living like a hermit. I could feel her unraveling from 100 miles away. What I didn't expect, though, was the voicemail she left at 3:42 a.m. I had kept my old phone off, but not disconnected. A part of me, the pathetic, whiny part that still wished things were different, wanted to hear if she'd try. She did. "Conrad, I don't know where you are. I'm scared. I know I've been distant. I know I've been cruel. But I need to see you. Please, just tell me you're okay. You don't have to come home. Just let me know you're alive." I must have replayed that message 20 times. Every word sounded like guilt. Not grief. Not love. Just regret. But regret is easy. Regret doesn't fix anything. Regret doesn't erase the years I spent begging for scraps of attention. Regret doesn't delete the photo I got in the mail. Yes, I knew about her affair before I ever touched that cake batter. I still hadn't decided what I'd do next. Return? Never speak to her again? Send her a letter from somewhere far enough to sting? But as the days went on, I knew one thing for certain. Silence had become my power. And for once, she had no idea what came next. 3 days after I vanished, she broke into the safe. I know this because I left it just difficult enough to tempt her curiosity, but not impossible to crack. A subtle breadcrumb I wanted her to find, just not too soon. I had placed it under the false assumption for years that she wouldn't care what I stored in there. Melinda used to mock the safe, actually. You really think anyone wants your dusty journals and old USB drives? I guess now she did. I had kept that safe in the corner of the garage, covered by paint cans and an old Christmas tree box. Nothing flashy, just a simple 4-digit combo I never once told her. But she knew me well enough to try our wedding anniversary. That part stung. It meant she remembered it, even if it had become just another date she ignored every year. Inside the safe were 3 things: a thick leather journal, a flash drive, and a single photograph. One she didn't know existed. It was the image that changed everything for me. The proof I never confronted her with. The one where she and that guy, the man with the gray tie and smug expression, were standing far too close on the steps outside her team-building retreat. Her hand was on his chest. His lips were near her ear, and someone had the decency or cruelty to send it to me in an unmarked envelope. I never told her I received it, never even hinted. Instead, I printed a copy and stored it away, waiting, maybe for this exact moment. When she saw it, I'm sure her stomach dropped. I imagined her standing in the garage with oil stains on her shoes and that photo shaking in her hands. Her first real moment of, oh no, he knew. The journal? That was the next knife. In it were over 2 years of entries. Pages and pages of me pouring out every lonely thought I was too embarrassed to say out loud. Every cold night in bed. Every silent dinner. Every time she laughed harder at her phone than at anything I said. There was no rage in those pages. Just a slow, pitiful ache. That's what probably broke her more than the photo. She couldn't deny what I'd written. It was time-stamped pain. Her neglect cataloged in my own handwriting. I knew her well enough to know she wouldn't cry right away. Melinda wasn't built that way. She was wired for damage control. First denial, then panic, then obsession. That's where she was now. Obsession. She texted every single person I had ever mentioned in passing. Old college roommates. My high school math tutor. She even called the phone company trying to get records of my last known GPS ping, which, of course, she didn't have access to. But she was trying. Harder than she ever did when I was right in front of her. And still, I stayed silent. Not to be cruel, but because I needed her to feel the vacuum she had created. My absence was no longer just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. Like someone had finally unplugged the appliance she hadn't realized was powering half her life. I don't know what she thought the flash drive held. Honestly, I'm not even sure she had the nerve to open it yet. That would come later. That would hurt in a very different way. But the most satisfying part? For once, she was the one spiraling. And me? I was finally watching the fire from the outside, not standing in the middle of it begging her to put it out. Melinda has always believed she's the smartest person in every room. It's one of the things I used to find charming. How confident she was, how effortlessly she could manipulate a conversation to her advantage. But confidence turns to arrogance when you start believing no one can outplay you. And this time, she walked right into the trap I didn't even know I had set. She hired someone. Private investigator. Not a friend or a neighbor, no, she went full thriller movie and found a guy named Clay who used to work in cyber forensics. I only know this because I got a notification from an old encrypted email I hadn't used in years. Melinda never knew about it, but it was linked to my old photo storage cloud. Clay tried to access it. Sloppy. What he didn't know was that I had set up alerts for any logins tied to that account. So when he tried digging through the metadata on my uploaded files, I knew exactly what he was doing and from where. Seattle. That's where Melinda's younger sister lives. That's also where she stayed the night after her team-building trip a few months back. The one I knew wasn't about team building at all. I can only imagine her face when Clay told her I had covered my tracks unusually well, and that it looked like I had planned this exit for months. That was technically true. But the part she doesn't realize is I didn't vanish to make her feel abandoned. I vanished because I already had been. Then came the email. Not from her, but from him. The man in the photo. His name is Darren. He didn't know I had his email address. I had pulled it from her calendar once, back when I still checked. The subject line was a single word: coward. He wrote, "You made your point. She's miserable. I hope that helps you sleep better." It didn't make me feel better. It made me furious. Not because he dared speak to me, but because even now, in the middle of her emotional fallout, she was still protecting him. She must have gone to him when she couldn't find me. She probably told him everything, cried on his shoulder, maybe even asked if he knew where I was. And he, smug and secure, decided to write me like he was the victim. That's what truly broke me. She didn't just cheat. She trusted him with her regret more than she ever trusted me with her truth. But here's where it gets twisted. Melinda showed up at my mother's house. My mom didn't tell her anything. She didn't let her in. But she told me what Melinda looked like: thin, pale, shaking. She stood on the porch for 10 minutes before saying, "Please, if you hear from him, just tell him I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to get this bad." Then she left a letter in the mailbox. I told Mom not to open it. I still haven't read it. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. The thing is, I had always dreamed of her saying sorry. Not grandly. Not in a movie scene breakdown. Just something sincere. But now that it finally happened, it felt late. Too late. I didn't need her apology anymore. I needed her before all this. Back when I was still trying to matter. Still holding on with bleeding hands. And now? Now she was the one chasing shadows. She had no idea where I was. But I was closer than she thought. I was sipping burnt motel coffee and half watching a rerun of some detective show when my phone buzzed. Not the old phone she used to call. I'd left that one off in a drawer. But the burner, the one tied to nothing but my prepaid data and an email I hadn't used since before we got married. The alert came from a local community Facebook group. I never joined it, but back when I still cared about our neighborhood events, I'd subscribed to the public notifications. I never thought I'd use them for anything more than street repair updates or lost dog posts, until I saw her name in the comments. Melinda had posted a public plea. It was short, just a few lines. But it said more than I thought she was capable of admitting to anyone besides a mirror. "If anyone has seen my husband, Conrad Webb, please tell him I'm sorry. I don't need explanations. I don't care where he is. I just want to know he's safe. I know I failed him. Please, if you're reading this, please let me fix it." I stared at the screen until it dimmed. For a moment, my heart twisted. For a second, just a second, I felt that pathetic flicker, the one that had always lived in my chest like a stubborn ember. The hope that maybe, finally, she understood. That she'd looked past the mirror and finally seen the man who'd been holding her reflection steady all these years. But then I read the comments. And it hit me. She hadn't posted that for me. She'd posted it for them. For the people who knew us. For the neighbors, the coworkers, her family, her friends. The ones who had seen our holiday cards and wine night photos. The ones who would be shocked to learn that the woman who hosted book club and posted perfectly filtered date night selfies had somehow driven her husband to vanish without a trace. They rallied around her. "You're so strong. He'll come back. Whatever happened, you two will find each other again." She liked the comments. She replied with crying emojis. She turned my disappearance into a tragedy narrative where she was the grieving widow of a man who lost his way. That's when the flicker inside me died for good. Because the truth is, I didn't lose my way. I escaped hers. 2 hours later, she went live on Instagram. I didn't watch it, but someone else did. Someone from my side of life. My old coworker Brent sent me a screen recording. "Dude," he texted. "She's cracking. Big time." In the video, she's sitting on our couch. The same couch I once bled on when I sliced my hand fixing her antique frame. The room's dim, her hair's messy, and she's not wearing makeup. It's all designed to look raw. She says, I know I hurt him. I know I let the wrong people into my life. I wish I could take it back. If you're watching this, Conrad, please just come home. She pauses, eyes welling up, lips trembling, and then whispers, "He doesn't even know the truth. Not all of it." That part, that one line, pierced me. What truth? What hadn't I known? I replayed that clip over and over, analyzing her expression. It wasn't guilt, it was fear. And that scared me more than anything she'd ever done. Because now, I wasn't just running from a woman who betrayed me. I was running from a story I hadn't finished reading. The line wouldn't leave my head. He doesn't even know the truth. It echoed through me like a warning bell I couldn't silence. I had thought I knew everything there was to know. Her coldness, the affair, the lies she spun to keep her mask from slipping. But what if there was more? Something buried deeper than her cheating? Something she never expected I'd go looking for? That night, I opened an old laptop I hadn't touched since the early days of our marriage. I kept it in a duffel bag with a few other things I took with me, mostly out of habit. I powered it on and stared at the outdated wallpaper. A picture of us at a pumpkin patch, back when we still smiled like we meant it. Melinda's hand was around my waist, but even in that frozen image, I looked like I was already bracing for disappointment. I almost closed the laptop, thinking it was pointless. But then I noticed something strange. A folder on the desktop labeled, "For work, do not open." Melinda had used that laptop once when hers died a few years ago. I never thought much of it, figured it was just her reports or meeting notes, but something about the timestamp caught my eye. The folder was last modified just 2 days before our 10th anniversary. Curious, I opened it. Inside were several documents. Most of them looked like spreadsheets and proposal drafts. I clicked through, bored and ready to shut it down, until I saw a folder nested at the bottom, titled July Weekend. My heart dropped. That was the same weekend she told me she was going to her mother's lake house for alone time. I clicked. Inside were photos. Not many, but enough to make my blood run cold. Melinda, in a white sundress I'd never seen before, standing beside Darren, the man from the rooftop photo. They were at a cabin, not a lake house. Her arms were around his shoulders in one picture. In another, they were laughing over a bottle of wine. And in the last one, she was curled up on his chest, asleep, like she didn't have a husband waiting at home wondering why she wasn't texting back. I kept clicking until I found a video. It was only 19 seconds long. He was filming. She was adjusting her hair in the mirror, smiling. He said, "You sure about this?" And she replied, without hesitation, without shame, "I've never been more sure." Conrad doesn't even ask questions anymore. It's like he's already given up. I paused it right there. I hadn't given up. I had trusted her. There's a difference. And to hear her speak about me like I was some furniture she'd grown tired of, I felt something inside me shift. Not grief, not even anger, clarity. She hadn't just betrayed me with her body. She had erased me from her story long before I walked away from it. I was nothing more than a placeholder in her life, a character who outlived his relevance. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the window of the cheap motel, staring at the cars passing on the freeway. Each one lit up the room for half a second, then vanished into the dark, just like I had. But I wasn't just disappearing anymore. I was watching, learning, remembering, and now I knew there was something I needed to do. Because if she could sleep beside him while talking about me like that, she deserved to hear what it feels like when the silence answers back. After days of silence, after weeks of running and disappearing into corners of the world she could no longer reach, I finally broke it. Not with a call, not with a voicemail, just a single message, 7 words, no punctuation, no emotion, no signature. I saw the video, that's all. I didn't send it from a number she'd recognize. I used a throwaway, one of those anonymous SMS services with no name and no trail. I wanted her to feel what I had felt, like a ghost was watching, listening, existing just out of reach. And it worked. The delivery confirmation hit, and less than 60 seconds later, the typing bubble appeared. But I didn't read her reply. Not yet. I just sat back and imagined what those words must have done to her. The panic, the nausea, the realization that her little secret, the one she buried in a folder on a laptop she forgot I owned, had surfaced. She probably went back and opened it again just to make sure it was really there. She probably stared at her own smiling face, hearing her own voice say those words about me, knowing now I had heard them too. And in that moment, she would have realized I wasn't just gone. I was watching. About an hour later, I finally opened the message she sent back. It was long, messy, rushed. You could tell she typed it with trembling hands. Conrad, please, I didn't mean for that to happen. That video was never supposed to exist. I was confused. I was lonely. You were so far away even when you were home. I know I hurt you, but please don't disappear. Please let me explain everything. I ended it with him. I swear. I thought you didn't love me anymore. I thought you'd stopped seeing me. I never wanted this. Please, don't give up on me. Don't give up on her? She'd already given up on me. She just hadn't realized it until I disappeared. And now that she was left sitting in the silence she once forced me to live in, she suddenly wanted answers. Wanted me back. But I wasn't coming back. Not to her. Not to the version of me who tolerated being treated like an afterthought. That man had vanished somewhere between the unopened texts, the faked business trips, and the half-hearted kisses she only gave me when no one else was looking. Still, something in her message haunted me. I thought you didn't love me anymore. It was ironic, really, because for so long, I thought she had stopped loving me. Maybe we both stopped at different times. Maybe we both forgot how to reach for each other. But she had filled that space with someone else. I had filled it with silence. That's when I realized this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about identity, about worth, about how easy it is to lose yourself when someone else slowly stops looking at you like you matter. So I sent one more message. Not to punish her, not to start a war, just to end the story. I'm alive. I'm safe. Don't look for me. And with that, I turned off the phone. For good. But the story wasn't quite over. Because what happened next, even I didn't see coming. A week passed after I sent that final message. No reply, no call, no public posts. The silence was deafening. But this time it was mine. It wasn't the cold, suffocating silence of being ignored by someone you love. It was peaceful, like I'd walked out of a thunderstorm and finally heard my own breathing again. I spent those days in a rented cabin 2 towns over. Nothing fancy. No cell reception, no internet, just a dusty fireplace and a radio that only picked up one oldies station. It was exactly what I needed. Every morning I made coffee, sat on the porch, and watched the fog rise off the trees. For once, no one was waiting for me to apologize for existing. And then came the letter. It arrived in a plain envelope with no return address, forwarded through my mother's house. I recognized the handwriting immediately, Melinda's. Part of me wanted to toss it into the fire without reading. But something told me this wasn't another plea for forgiveness. Inside was just one page. Conrad, if you're reading this, then you already know everything. I have no excuses left. You gave me years of your life and I gave you silence. I blamed you for the distance I created. I used someone else to feel seen, and I destroyed the only person who ever looked at me like I was enough. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a second chance. But I want you to know, I see you now, and I hope wherever you are, you see yourself too. You deserved more than I gave you, and I will carry that truth with me for the rest of my life. No drama, no manipulations, just truth. I folded the letter, slid it into my journal, and smiled for the first time in what felt like years. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to win. I just needed her to finally see the man she lost. And now she had. In the months that followed, I started over in a new town. Small apartment, new job. I joined a local chess club, something I hadn't done since college. People there don't know my past. They just know I'm Conrad, the quiet guy who makes bad coffee but plays a decent endgame. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not broken. I'm rebuilding. And I've realized something important. Walking away wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. So, if you're still reading this, I want to ask you something. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have stayed? Confronted her? Disappeared like I did? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit home, or made you think about your own worth, subscribe for more real stories like this on Reddit Confessions. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the first real step toward freedom.